In this second episode of the Wingate Way, we had a very interesting conversation with Dr. Teague, the Dean of School of Sports Sciences. We talked about leadership, family, marriage, and everything that he found so fulfilling about his work. Stick around for this episode of the Wingate Way. You won't want to miss his trick-or-treat story. Thank you for joining the show. This is the second episode, and we're really excited to have you.
Yeah, sure.
You know, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what is your story? How did you get here?
My name is Travis Teague. I came here in 1994, and for actually 2 stints. I came here for 11 years, Jessica, my wife, and I, and then was gone for a period of 8 or 9 years, and at a couple other universities, and then came back. And my current role is Dean in the School of Sports Sciences since 2012. So, and my wife is the visit manager over in admissions. I also have a daughter who's a senior here in biology. So we've got a lot invested in Wingate, a lot invested in us.
Yeah. So you are one of the people that are responsible for what we coined the boomerang effect. You know, people that go, leave the institution, and then inevitably come back.
Right.
What do you feel so compelled to come back, and what happened in that short stint where you were gone?
It's a good question, and like you say, I think we're not the only ones like this. There are other examples, even the president, you know, across the campus where this takes place. But you know, to me, it's really what we're here to talk about. It's this Wingate Way. That's what brought us back. It was the toughest decision we ever made to leave and to begin with. But then when we had the opportunity to come back, and the roles really that we have here, there's no question. I mean, it was really a no-brainer. We were coming back. It's because who we knew. You know, we knew what we were getting into. We knew the people. We knew this place. So
good. And you've mentioned your wife a couple of times already during the show. And how did you guys meet? And how long have you guys been married?
Yeah, we met at Chapel Hill. We went to school together. Met freshman year there, and yeah, so got engaged somewhere in all of that, and we're married right after we graduated. Jessica, of course, was on the accelerated plan. It took me a little longer to finish up, but we were married in 1990. So
wow,
a lot of years there, a lot of water under the bridge.
Yeah,
but it's good.
Yeah, and in your new role as the dean, do you still get to teach? And do you miss being in the classroom a little bit more often?
I do get to teach. I teach one class a semester, and right now I split that up between the undergraduate and our graduate program up in Ballantyne.
Okay.
And but yeah, I do miss it. I do miss it a little bit. I miss not knowing the students as much as I used to, but I try to encourage them to come by, try to get involved in other ways through our Leadership Academy and through some of our experiential learning and various ways like that, in addition to my class.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the Leadership Academy. What was the intent there, and what are you trying to achieve with the program?
Yeah, it's something, you know, we're thankful. The Board of Visitors allowed us, we put a grant in with the Board of Visitors about 3 years ago, so they gave us some seed funds to start that, and really it's for those students within the School of Sports Sciences to pursue leadership opportunities, to have a structured curriculum. And really, I have to give the kudos to Brandy Clemmer, Dr. Clemmer, who directs that program for us. I just sort of help get it going and set it up, and sort of work with Brandy to get that really what it is today. But I'm excited about it. It's grown to, we have a curriculum now that's a part of that, and you know, we'd had our first graduate in December, who was one of the leadership candidates. So they do a lot of service. a lot of, again, the academic side on just theories, principles, leadership, and being able to apply those in real world settings. So it's exciting. It's something that's different. You know, it's something that's maybe a student somewhere else is not going to get that opportunity.
One of the most memorable trips that I've been on is probably a trip to West Virginia, where we took a group of us down there or up there to serve the less privileged and those that are in some of the biggest areas of poverty in the United States. So it was a very memorable experience for me, and it impacts those around you in ways you could have never imagined. Like, it was a both emotional and very humble experience. So I think it definitely gave me the confidence to be able to communicate with people, definitely step up and take initiative when needed to, and just I think as a person it's changed me. Just the things we do, the people we serve, the impact we've had on others, it kind of goes to your heart, really. You feel really good about yourself and like you've really changed somebody's life. I think for me, the biggest thing that I've learned is to not be afraid to step into a challenge, to kind of just throw yourself out there and go out of your comfort zone whenever you can, because I feel like that's when you will succeed the most and learn the most about yourself. And also another thing that Dr. Clemmer has stressed for our entire leadership group is to lead with love. And that's something that I learned in West Virginia, and it kind of stuck with me since that trip, and I kind of live by that.
It fits quite well with this notion of, mentorship that we emphasize so much here at Wingate. But how will you define leadership? I'm sure you saw leadership as something important to develop into our students, and hence the reason the program exists. But how will you define leadership?
Yeah, I sort of look at leadership as sort of getting out of the way. To try to sort of set vision, set goals, put the right people around you. I think that's the key part of leadership, and then let them do the things that you brought them here to do, and then support that. And then, I think for me, it's a servant style to try to, to model that with our students and adults or whomever wants to look at what we're doing, to try to let them see you being involved at any level of the organization and putting the time in. It is true that people have to see that you care about them before they buy into something, and it's about being sincere. It's about all those qualities of the Wingate Way, I guess you could say so.
Yeah. And do you have a leader that has impacted your life, influenced you from close or from afar, that you hold in high esteem as a model of leadership?
Well, I think I have a lot of them. I think that's, not any maybe specific individual, but, in your path, in life, you come across a lot of different people who, you pull certain things and you model that behavior. There are a lot of them here. I wouldn't want to start naming names because I would leave someone out that's been one of my mentors, here. Some are still here, some have retired, and some you see it in students. You can learn, it doesn't matter, it's not an age thing. Sometimes it is experience, but at the same time, I've just tried to see the things. We talk about this idea of a Wingate Way, and I've thought about this, as you know, for a long time.
Absolutely.
But when we talk about the Wingate Way, it sound a little bit odd, but I think of it as it's almost like when I talk about Wingate, it's like you're talking about a person. Okay. Somebody might ask you about Wingate, and really it doesn't come out this way, but it's like, yeah, he's a pretty good guy. He's someone that's very knowledgeable. He or she, she's enthusiastic. She's caring. He's, has integrity. Yeah. honest. These are the, those are the things that I think about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it is a person, you have to think of it, sometimes, that person is not perfect.
Yeah.
Person makes mistakes, just like any person would. That person is, has their ups and downs. They may, you may not always agree. Sometimes they may make you angry or whatnot. But at the same time, if you know that person, this Wingate Way, if you know that Wingate cares for you, then that sort of smooths out, I think, around the big issues. So, to me, that, and maybe to take that a step further, it's just like, a relationship. So I sort of see Wingate as a person, it's like a friend. It's when you're describing it. So it's different than, a place. And I think that maybe in essence is part of this Wingate Way. It's part of this person, this entity that at least in my mind when I think about Wingate.
And not trying to put you on the spot, but you've mentioned that the Wingate Way is typically embodied in the person. Is there one person, or is there a story that comes to mind that in your mind embodies all these attributes or carries well all these different qualities that you mentioned as being part of this Wingate Way?
Yeah, I mean, let me take it this way. It's if it is this person, then it's about a relationship. So, and as I gain experience, we won't say get older, we'll say experiences. as I have more and more experiences, I realize that it's really, you have to move yourself out of the way. A good relationship really is about selfless. You are. I'm putting the other person in front of me, and I think, and again, in my mind, that's sort of what this is about. It's not about me. Yeah. It's about Wingate. It's about this relationship, this place. So the more that you understand that and you take that perspective, I think the more that you understand, the decisions that are made sometimes, and that what we're all trying to accomplish as a community. Yeah. It's like I say sometimes, a tree is known by its fruit. And a good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. Yeah. So a tree is known by its fruit. So if you sort of think as this entity of Wingate being this tree, then, and you have this root system that's underneath it, and you talk about a person, I don't really want to do that. I mean, not for fear of leaving somebody out in this instance, but just because everybody impacts this place. Okay. So if you look at that root system, that big tap root, that main root, it's intertwined with faith, knowledge, service. If we want to look at that, that's the main foundation of this place. Yeah. Everybody, 1896 to now, has got some piece of that root somewhere. So, it's good that I'm happy, proud, whatever, that we've got a piece, you and me, all of us, we have a piece of that root system. So it's a complex, complicated, intangible thing that we're talking about here, but it's real.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's no question it's real.
I think, the intangible and almost elusive nature of this concept is probably the reason this show exists, right? Because it's so difficult for so many of us to articulate and to explain this thing that we just feel and that we get to experience on a daily basis, in our relationship with our colleagues and students and in different parts of the institution. So I completely agree with you when you talk about this thing being something that is intangible and it's elusive.
Yeah, and that's just like a friendship. Yeah. Again, I mean, we can describe a friendship, and we know a good friend when we see it. Yeah. But like I say, a tree's known by its fruit. To me, overwhelmingly, the fruit's good. Yeah. So that tells you, to me, about what we're doing at Wingate.
Yeah. And I know a core part of your Leadership Institute is this idea of mentorship. What do you think mentorship is so important in the context of the educational experience that we try to provide our students?
Man, I think it's key. And I don't know where everyone else is on this, but I feel like that mentorship is not easy. If you're going to be a mentor, then you have to be willing to, if someone wants you to be their mentor, there's a difference, I think.
Absolutely.
If someone is seeking you out as a mentor, then it's your responsibility, I feel, to just do just that. When you feel they're seeking you out for a reason, they want to know what you have to think. So when I'm going to tell you what I think, and sometimes that hurts, and it's the good ground, the good soil of mentorship, takes some. You got to break the ground sometimes, and sometimes that's painful, and that's happened in my life, and I'm sure it's in yours. But it's a tough thing. So being a mentor, you're going to still make mistakes. The mentor, I mean. Yeah. But it's good for people to see that. Yeah. If you make a mistake, say, hey, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Don't not do the things that you want somebody else to do for you. So it's a very difficult thing to be, and I'm not saying I'm good at it. To be a good mentor, it's a struggle, but at the same time, if we don't say, hey, maybe you should try this, or how about thinking about doing this different to a student, then who is going to say it? Who's going to help them to grow? I mean, today there's so many challenges that we face. And I think we need people to young people, old people, and whatnot, anybody to step up. Yeah. All of our coaches, athletics, faculty, staff, we need those. We need each of us to be able to step peer mentors. Absolutely. It's a key thing. If you have those people, then it makes life better.
Yeah. And I think everybody who's had the opportunity to work with you or to know you or to be in your class truly and genuinely get this sense of care that you have for this place, for the people in it. And what do you think that comes from? Is there a moment in, does it come from your childhood, your upbringing? Can you walk us back through that childhood and perhaps it will give us the sense for where the seeds for the men that you have become today?
That's a tough question. I think everyone's a product of their experiences. Absolutely. I give a lot of it to parents start with all the way through. But athletics, sports, I mean, you've played a lot of team sports, and to me there's a great value that you learn there about, dealing with conflict and working with other people, respecting other people. Again, to me, it's just trying to treat people the way that you would want to be treated.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you have a favorite childhood memory?
Probably. This is probably too long for here. But I was relaying this not long ago to someone around Halloween. We were talking about Halloween and trick-or-treating and doing all that kind of stuff. When I was a kid, I know it's hard to believe, but I lived out in the sticks. I know that's pretty tough for people to believe. But we had no trick-or-treaters ever. And by my mom would always go and buy candy just, the hopes that somebody would show up. So I was about 17, about my son's age now. So I better prepare myself. But I put on some old coat that had been in the closet for a while, and back then there was no plastic grocery bags, it was paper. So I took a paper grocery bag, cut the eyes out, put it over my head, cut it where it fit on my shoulder, took another paper grocery bag, went inside, put a little bit of candy in it to prime it, went to the door, put 2 shoes under my knees, reached over there and rang the doorbell. I heard them stirring in there, and they came out, and man, I had them. They didn't know. Hey, we've got us a trick or treat. They put candy in my bag, and to this day, I still, give my dad a hard time on that. It's just, it's good to look back on that kind of stuff. I've got a ton of sport memories and all that kind of thing too. But it's just a collection of things. That's what makes you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what does Dr. Teague do when he's not teaching, he's not leading, he's not mentoring, he's not empowering students to be and become the best version of themselves? What do you do for fun?
Yeah, I'm making a lot of mistakes. That's one thing that I do. What I do for fun, I like outdoors. I'm a big, I love outdoors. I like to fish, like to hunt, like to hike, camp, all that kind of thing. I just really enjoy doing that. We're big, faith folks. We're in church a lot and doing a lot of things there too. So spending time what I can with the family. It's sort of tough these days because everybody's growing up, in our household anyway. So, but now's a good time over break where we're all back together. So,
yeah. And I know you and your wife Jessica, absolutely have the respect and the admiration and even perhaps the adulation of so many people and so many students. But what I admire most personally is the relationship that you two have. There's this friendship that I truly admire. So as a newlywed myself, I thought perhaps I should ask you what is the secret to a relationship like that one.
Same thing we've been talking about, I think. Yeah. Just, if you come by the sink and there's dishes there, wash them.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So I think I can do that. I think if it's just about doing the dishes and making sure that you care for one another.
That's the point.
There we go.
Put her in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And so did you always know you wanted to be a teacher, that you wanted to be in education? And if not, if you were not a teacher, what would you be doing? What were your aspiration as a child?
Yeah, I think it was, I think I've ended up sort of the best of both worlds from what we do in academics, because I was all about sports.
Okay.
So I would be doing something in sport, but to a degree, I've done a little bit of that on the motorsport side. Yeah. But I've learned that, you have to, depending on what level of sport. Even I coached high school football, starting out, and there's a tremendous amount of time that you invest in that, and it depending upon the level of where you go. In professional sport in particular, in let's say NASCAR, motorsports, there's just so much travel. I mean, I traveled a tremendous amount not being a part of a team. We were doing various marketing pieces. I enjoyed it and loved it, but it's tough on a family, that's the thing. So that's probably the main reason that I at some point decided to, okay, I'm going to go back to school. And the reason I say best of both worlds, now I can be around sport, and one of the blessings of the whole thing is that, now I'm, the older that I've become, the more experienced I am with it. I've got a ton of students who are, out in the field, and successful, and that's really good to see them. You're talking about mentorship. Yeah. That's not that I had anything to do with it, but that's awesome to see those, your students be successful. But at the same time, now I can go to sporting events and catch up with my students. Yeah. and all that kind of thing, and it's fun. So I can be involved in it, but it's like being a grandparent. Maybe I'm not there yet, but it's sort of like, you can go back to the house now, for the kids sort of thing. So I can go visit and go work in these sports, but I can also have a pretty awesome lifestyle of being in higher ed too. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Is there something that you see students worry about and you know they shouldn't? Or is there an advice that you find yourself giving students all the time?
Yeah, I think the advice that I see that I give students all the time is that they need to work on their, we not just students, but need to work on our communication with other people. Yeah. I tell the story of, going back to NASCAR, in a big race team where you multi-million-dollar sponsorship deals that are taking place, and you'll have the best marketing team, not as good as ours, but you'll have a best marketing team in the world working on this pitch, to this big Fortune 50 company. And they have the best PowerPoints and they have the best people and so forth, and they're pitching that as hard as they can go. But at the end of that meeting, knock on the door, and the owner of that race team is going to come in, and they're going to talk about what it takes to be a championship team and what we are and so forth. So my point is that it's the personal touch that makes the difference in that sale, and to me, that's something we really need to work on. We don't have to talk about phones, and I mean, we all know the impact and the role. Yeah, they're great and then all that. And you're sort of tethered to it sometimes, but at the same time, what makes the difference is people. So you have to be able to deal with people, and that's a skill that, to some extent, we're technologying ourselves out of that. Yeah. So, but especially in sport, and all of our fields in sports science, service oriented. So you're going to deal with people. Yeah. So that's what I find myself talking a lot about. So
is there then, from a more practical standpoint, is there habits or best practices that you would recommend for somebody who's truly interested and willing to improve their personal, interpersonal skills and communication skills?
Yeah, it's not rocket science, okay? To me, it's about, I preach small things. Do the small things right. Yeah. If you do those, the rest of it, to me, it takes care of itself. So, do the small things right. Put yourself to the side. Put, the organization. If you're buying something, you're spending organization money, pretend it's like that's your money. Yeah. I tell students, a good employee makes money or saves money. Yeah. And if you do that, then people will recognize that. And especially if you couple all of that with all those pieces of integrity and so forth that are a part of it. So, I mean, it's not, I still think, for example, and I hate to I use motorsports so many times, but it doesn't matter. I asked a guy not long ago, here's an organization with 400 employees, if you don't understand this sport, 400 employees. And I asked the guy who makes hiring decisions, I said, does a guy who wants a job so bad, he'll just come and sweep the floors or do whatever, just to work his way or her way into the sport. Does that still happen? He said, absolutely it does. Oh. So you have this skill set. I mean, whatever those skills are that are critical to you being successful, we develop those. You better develop these intangible pieces too. Yeah. That, to me, that's a good to great. That's the way that you're going to be more successful. That entrepreneurial spirit, that willingness to fail. That's another thing that I tell students. We're too worried about what other people think, our peer pressure, and fail at something. I mean, if you don't try it, then you're just sitting on the sidelines. Yeah. Go out there, be prepared. You don't have as much experience as ever, and you're not supposed to. I was talking about as a student. Yeah. You come out, you're a new employee, don't worry about all that. You be the most prepared person in the room, and the rest of it will take care of itself. People will see that, and that's, to me, that's still important. Yeah. it's a package. It's the it factor.
The it factor. You mentioned, being willing to fail and being willing to take risk, and I think it's such an important point. I see it play out in my life in terms of really learning to improve our relationship with failure. I think so often we have a negative relationship or a bad relationship with failure, whereas sometimes in retrospect, those moments were the defining moments of our life. They were the ones where we learned the most, right? Do you have a favorite failure, and what have you learned from it?
Yeah, I have a lot of them, but at the same time, I'm trying to think favorite failure. I recall one time I was working in the recruiting office at North Carolina in the football office as a student, and back then I was in charge in the recruiting side. I was in charge of all the tapes that came in for prospective student athletes. And back then it was all VHS, it was a bunch of tapes.
What is that?
Yeah, it was all, 8-track. And, but anyway, that was my job. So I remember the assistant coaches, I was like basically the librarian of these videos. And the assistant coach would come in and they were supposed to check these things out. Well, they didn't always check them out. They just, we've been around sport, they just took the tape and went and watched it. They may have brought it back, they may not have. Well, one day my recruiting coordinator called me in, and I thought I was, I was a young buck, and I was, marched into the office, and he said, "Sit down, coach." And I'm just a kid, and he said, "Some assistant coaches tell me they can't get there. They're not finding the tapes in the library." And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, the reason why is, and I got about that far in explaining what they were just taking the tape. I got about that far, and before it was even a cool thing to do, he gave me the hand, and he said, "You know what that is, son?" He said, "That's an excuse."
Wow.
He said, "Whose job is it to take care of the tapes?" And I said, "It's mine." He said, "That's what I thought." And right, wrong, fair, not fair, that was a lesson. Yeah. And so I took that as, okay, you're right. And ultimately, he was right. Yeah. It was my responsibility. So, I've tried to remember that, that lesson, and when it's, that's again the importance of putting good people around you.
Yeah.
You're responsible for this area or this. The more that you have, quality individuals, which I feel like, man, we do here, the better off it's going to be.
Yeah. I can certainly say that, learning to take responsibility for myself has been something that dramatically changed my life, and I think, I asked you earlier, what's a leader? For me, a leader is somebody who not only takes responsibility for himself, but expand that responsibility for others, right? That is not only I'm responsible for myself, but I decide that I'm also responsible for the people around me, to try to make a difference, to use the talents and the gifts and the passion that I have to contribute to the world in ways I find meaningful and exciting, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're almost toward the end of the show. So the last question that I wanted to ask you is, obviously you've been in higher ed for a long time and you've been at Wingate for a long time. What do you find most fulfilling about your job, and what could you attribute this persistence and this long career to? Like, what do you think keeps you enthused, energized, although for somebody on the outside looking in is the same thing year after year?
Yeah, it's 100% students, I think. When you see them progress, and like I said earlier, you see them be successful, and I tell every class, it doesn't matter. And I just try to, in an encouraging sort of way.
Yeah.
I tell 2 stories. One is, I call it the light switch theory. I say, you know, that I want to tell you something. Been doing this 25 years. The people who are successful, who become athletic directors and vice presidents of this and that and whatnot, they were getting it done right here too.
Okay. Okay.
So I've never seen somebody that was, although I'm sure it's there, that was just, you know, coasting as a student all 4 years now, consistently, and then come out and be an all-star employee.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet. So I encourage them to say, you know, get involved.
Yeah.
Do, you know, that's part of this Wingate Way. If you look at it as a pathway,
Yeah.
there's room for two people.
Yeah.
You know, you and Wingate. So you got to take advantage of the opportunities on the path.
Absolutely.
If you just stand off the side of the path and complain about it or pick it apart or what, then what do you have for that? I mean, like I said, there are errors, mistakes, you know, things to do better. 100% agree. But that's part of all of our responsibility to work towards that. You know, so do it now and you'll do it later. I think anyway. That's sort of my take on it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time, and it was absolutely a pleasure as usual, as always, to
you too.
to have a conversation with you and to have you on the show.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Thank
Junior.
you.